Hello, everybody, and happy Thursday. Happy opening day eve as Jack and I kick off the fresh season of GC Live Fowl Balls. As I mentioned, or as you saw at the top of the show, I am your host, Intern Macheca. Alongside me is my co-host, the one, the only, Mr. Jack Veltri. Jack, how are we doing on this Thursday evening?
It's been a freaking wild 24 hours. For those who don't know, obviously I went to Auburn yesterday, all fine and dandy, had a good time, made my stop at Buc-ee's, and then I leave this morning from my hotel. I'm on the road about an hour. I'm in Georgia. I see a yellow light flash up on my car. I'm like, oh, maybe it's my tire pressure or something. And then I feel a little wobbly in the car, and I'm like, what's going on? Then I feel my tire flattening. I'm like, oh man, this has never happened to me before. What do I do? So I had a flat tire, and never happened to me before. I was on the side of the road for maybe like an hour. Wasn't panicking. I was pretty cool about it, but things eventually worked out like they always do. And I'm here now, and this is my all-time favorite show to do. I love talking baseball. I love being on here with Joe. Me and him had so much fun doing this last year, and we were just the interns filling in, and we got our own show now. So I'm freaking hyped, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, Jack. Back where we started, man. Back where we started, indeed. So, baseball season, it's upon us. We are officially here. The start of the 2024 campaign for Gamecock Baseball starts tomorrow against Miami of Ohio. 4:00 first pitch for the Gamecocks at home. Eli Jones on the mound. Jack, it's finally here.
This brings a smile to my face. Like I said before, man, my favorite sport to cover here. This is what I was most interested to do when I got the full-time job at GC. Like, I get to cover baseball 24/7. It is so much fun. And this team has the potential to be very good this year. I think they've got some things to kind of work through, as every team does, but I think they are set up for a good year. Like you said, Eli Jones getting the start tomorrow. This is going to be a new team, man. I think the starting rotation in particular, I think, is your biggest question mark, because you're having to replace Will Sanders, Jack Mahoney, Noah Hall, James Hicks, a bunch of vet guys who were your starting rotation last year, and now they're gone. So who are you going to count on? Who's going to step up? And I think they've got a solid plan for this weekend with who's starting, and we'll see we'll see how it goes. But I think this is going to be a very exciting year, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's going to be a great season. Obviously, South Carolina projected to do pretty well, right? Starting off ranked 25th in the country. Jack, there's a lot of places we can start, but I think we should start with the rotation. It was announced today, Coach Kingston. I was there. You obviously had to deal with a flat tire, and I couldn't tell what was worse, the 40-point loss or the flat tire. But here we are. I was at Coach Kingston's media availability. It was short. It was sweet for Coach King, and then Eli Jones and Cole Messina also took a couple questions, not many, because there's baseball yet to be played. Nothing has been said for yet. But Coach King, announcing his starting rotation, you are going with Eli Jones, Dylan Eskew, and then Roman Kimball. Kimball obviously coming off of a lat strain, and then most notably Tommy John from last season. The pitcher from Notre Dame, we have yet to see him in action in the Garnet and Black. So, Jack, walk me through your initial thoughts of this opening rotation.
I think it's the best one you could probably go with right now. Obviously, you could put Matthew Becker in there, but he got hurt on Saturday, which people thought maybe it was like Tommy John or like a shoulder injury or something. From hearing with the source, and then obviously with Kingston today, he may not pitch this weekend. Me personally, I wouldn't throw him this weekend just because you don't want to potentially run the risk of getting him injured. That's kind of what I was told, is that it's going to be like a rest and recovery type thing, and then see how it is, because it's like an impingement in his shoulder rotator cuff area. So that's something you don't want to play around with. Better to happen now than midway through the year. But the guys that you do have in the rotation, I think, are very solid. I think for a while now, we've kind of known Eli Jones was going to be the guy in the rotation. He made some starts towards the end of SEC play last year. He obviously had the great start against Arkansas, had some hit or miss kind of starts, but I think from what I've seen this spring in scrimmages, he's throwing about 92 to 93 on his fastball, locating the zone very well, getting a ton of strikeouts, which is definitely what you want from your Friday night guy. And then following him, Dylan Eskew. I think Mark Kingston said it today, Joe, that Eskew made the biggest jump from last year. He was a guy that pitched in relief last year, didn't make any starts. He came from JUCO. And now, I mean, from what I've seen, he's been throwing the ball really well. So I think he's a good number 2 option. Then obviously Roman Kimball. What are we getting from him? I haven't been at a scrimmage where he pitched yet. From what I heard, he was sitting, mid to upper 90s, and that's kind of what happens after Tommy John. For some reason, your elbow just really strengthens. You could throw the ball a lot harder. So he was sitting, upper 90s, and I think from what I've heard, he's got really good stuff, and I'm excited to see how he pitches on Sunday and his start. Now, I don't know how long he's going to go. I remember talking to him a few weeks ago, and he was kind of saying, leading up to this weekend, he wanted his pitch count to be around 65 pitches, so that way he'd be ready to go. I expect like a Jack Mahoney type treatment from last year when he had TJ. I would say maybe like 4 to 5 innings maximum this weekend from him. And then it's going to be a game where you can probably turn it over to the bullpen, no problem. I think you have a lot of guys that are going to be getting innings this weekend. And we'll see what happens. But this is where we finally get the answers that we've been seeking for months now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a pretty good rundown of the rotation. I agree. Eli Jones, Kingston said it best. He certainly earned the opportunity to be the opening day starter. Eli Jones has come a long way from giving up a couple bunch of runs to Presbyterian in the midweek his freshman year. So shout out to Eli Jones. He's come a very, very long way. He's now the guy, right? Obviously Becker's out dealing with some soreness, but it was going to be Eli Jones on opening day either way. So he has come quite a long way. So I'm happy for him. And he's Jack. He was the real deal during the fall and the spring. Like one of the most consistent guys through both fall, spring. I remember like during that freshman season, turning to whoever was next to me asking like, who the heck is this kid? And then they're like, oh, they got a lot of hope on him. Like he's going to start some midweeks. Then you be ready. Next 2 years, this kid's going to be really good. And sure enough, here we are. Eli Jones is your opening day starter. And without any doubt, right? Like we all kind of knew he was going to be the number 1. And then Becker, obviously potentially to fill in number 2. But we mentioned his injury question. We'll get to that in a little bit more depth. I know you had a big, long, update on the message boards, and then I also wrote a story about it today. So we can get to the injury update after, we go through the pitching rotation. But Dylan Eskew also is a guy like I like to see, making the jump into the rotation. He's going to be a good arm for your bullpen or your rotation, regardless of, where he's at, whether he's starting games, coming out of the bullpen, starting midweeks. This kid is very valuable to this team. And, he's finally getting his big shot on opening day weekend, filling in for, we presume, would be Becker's spot. So SQ has his chance now in non-conference play to really, throw his name in the mix to possibly be a starter in SEC play. I know last season, obviously, you knock on wood because you had the injuries to the pitching staff. But again, the non-conference play is to see, who your guys are, who you can rely on in the SEC play. So same goes for the rotation, right? And, I can remember, this time last year, we were talking about, how this baseball team was really, really veteran heavy in the pitching core. Now it's kind of the opposite, right? You were veteran heavy in the on the offensive side, right? And now, you have a lot of young, fresh pitchers. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this pitching staff, but then also Roman Kimball. I'm obviously high up on him. He did a lot of really good things at Notre Dame under Link Jarrett that season where they went pretty far into Omaha. Kimball was their guy, one of their main pitchers. Came to South Carolina. Unfortunately, had to go through Tommy John, but like Jack mentioned, players come back from Tommy John stronger. It's more of a preventative surgery than anything. Obviously, you tear it. It's meant to make you stronger. It's Jack, nowadays, it feels like every pitcher gets Tommy John at least once. So I'm excited to see what Kimball can do, right? We've heard about it. He's big on YouTube. South Carolina fans have been really, really excited for his return. And I feel like a lot of people in the media too are as well. Cole Messina today called him a maniac, right? Said he battles back, just, compared his other 2 pitchers, he's like, they're both sinker ball pitchers. And then Roman Kimball is just a maniac. I think you kind of need that out of the guy that you're sending out there on Sunday. We talked about this a lot last season with Jack Mahoney. He is that kind of guy, the junkyard dog, if you will. I know that's his nickname, but you need somebody that is a little bit of a head case, right? A little has that mean in him, has, can go close out a series if you need. And so far, what we've heard about Roman Kimball, he's all that and more. As soon as he steps between the lines, it's Roman versus everybody else. So I'm excited to see what he can bring. And then obviously, like I mentioned, Dylan Eskew, in terms of, the guys that we haven't seen anything really out of, it's Dylan Eskew. So it's time for Dylan Eskew to step up. It's time for Roman Kimball step up and show, this fan base what he can do in the garnet and black. So a lot of proving to be said for on the pitching staff this weekend, Jack.
Nice long monologue there, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I'm turning into Yuva by the day.
You covered every base, man.
Yeah.
I mean, right? I think you got a ton of guys that are, like Joe and I have said before, very unproven. Not that they haven't pitched before, but it's like they don't have the starting experience here at South Carolina. Dylan Eskew had an 8.5 ERA last year out of the bullpen. Rowan Kimball hasn't pitched in 2 years in a meaningful game. Eli Jones, like Joe said before, 2 years ago was working his way back from Tommy John and then became your midweek pitcher every now and then and didn't go a ton of innings. And then last year he gets his chance. And so we'll see what happens. You have a lot of guys that can pitch. And I think it's going to be a puzzle to kind of figure out over the next few weeks. I think by the time SEC play starts, you're getting Becker back fully healthy and hopefully a week or two, maybe a little later, who knows? And then, who knows? I think your rotation is going to look a lot different by the time SEC play starts because you're pitching your best guys at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's going to be a battle, right, to see who can, stand out from the rest in terms of this pitching staff. Same goes for the offensive end. And Jack, we could do a little lineup preview here. I know we did that a little bit on the walkthrough on Monday. We did a little baseball preview there. But yeah, before we get to the preseason awards, Ethan Petrie obviously stands out. Obviously, Gavin Casas, there are the returners, but who else stands out to you about this offense or on this offense?
I like Blake Jackson. I think he is the transfer from Charlotte, Mr. TikTok and all this and that. I think is going to be hitting leadoff for this team all season. I think he is, from what I've seen, multiple games now, he's a guy that can get on base, hit your singles, really scorch the ball. And then the good thing about him is when he does get on base, he's a threat to steal almost every time. And then he moved. I think I talked about it the other day. There was a situation where he hit a single, stole second, and then he tagged up, moved to third on a sac fly. Then he scored on a wild pitch. So that's the type of player you're getting with Blake Jackson. And I think him being at the top of the lineup, it's not to say guys like Will McGillis or Braylon Wimmer weren't good at the top of the order, but they were a different type of good, right? They were guys that could hit for more power, get on base, but they were more, extra base hit kind of guys. With Jackson, I think he has the ability to turn a double into a triple and hit the ball into the gap and stuff. But I think he's more of your get on base, steal some bags, and get into scoring position so your big guys in the middle of the order can really
true leadoff hitter.
Yes, a real true leadoff hitter, which I think South Carolina's been missing for a little bit now. And I think it's going to serve them really well. I think what you're probably going to see is Jackson in the 1, and then Parker Noland, the transfer from Vanderbilt, probably in the 2, in my opinion. I think a lot of guys that I've talked to have been high on Noland this year. He is going to be playing second base for this team tomorrow as a starter. And, he's got a good bat. I think he's got a pretty good glove. And I think that's what you need, right? I think the transfers are definitely going to serve this team very well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with the Blake Jackson point. That's somebody, came in from Charlotte, not the biggest of schools, right? And he wasn't the biggest of transfers, wasn't the biggest splash, but he's one of those guys that got here, performed in the fall and then kept it going in the spring. Kingston has talked about that quite a lot, about how guys, if they play well in the fall, they need to keep it going in the spring to earn more spots. He's more concerned with your body of work in the spring. Blake Jackson, one of those guys, when he initially got here, I'm going to be honest, Jack, he wasn't one of those guys that I had initially thought of as one of the transfers to make an immediate impact. But as soon as we saw him play, you could tell that he was going to make an impact one way or another. I'm glad that he's found his way into the starting lineup. He also can hit for power too. He's not shy of hitting a long ball every once in a while, but again, it's his speed that makes the difference. And just very, very big pickup there. And some of these transfers, you might not see at the beginning, might work their way in. One of those guys, I'm not sure if we'll see tomorrow. Jack, maybe you have more of an indication of this, but Kennedy Jones obviously had a really, really good fall, but has not picked it up as much in the spring. Power bat, but not necessarily there yet.
So one thing I've also been hearing, and I think Joe, you can kind of back this up, right, with Cassis and Tyler Causey, the first base battle, they're both kind of banged up. Isn't that what Kingston said today?
Yeah, he said Casas and Causey both kind of dealing with bumps and bruises, but both of them should be good to go this weekend.
So let's assume I was having a conversation today that Ethan Petrie may or may not slide into first base this weekend. Yes. He was playing first base in Tuesday's scrimmage, so it's not off the table. Let's say in some way Ethan Petrie isn't playing right field and he's out at first base. Then I think you have an argument to put Kennedy Jones in. However, I think the outfield, in my opinion, should be this. I think realistically, Ethan Petrie in right, Dylan Brewer in center, and Blake Jackson in left. But let's say Ethan Petrie's at first. I think you can – Dylan Brewer, I think, is going to be in center field tomorrow.
Yeah, then I don't think there's a question about that.
I think Jackson is too good of a hitter to be riding the bench or DHing. So I think you put him in one of the corner outfield spots. And then I think you put Ryan Bakes, the freshman, who was, he's a catcher, but he can also play the outfield. So I think he's also going to be in one of the corner outfield spots. He's been really impressing me and a lot of people. And I think he deserves to start over someone like Kennedy Jones. Look, I know Kennedy Jones has the background, right? Big power hitter, UNC Greensboro, all this and that. But if you're struggling, you shouldn't be playing right now, right? You're supposed to be playing the guys that have been playing well. And I think Ryan Bakes has been arguably playing better. So, look, I know Jones had a good fall and stuff, but his spring has kind of been not so good. So I think you got to ride with the hot hand. And, look, Jones will get his opportunities, right?
Oh, absolutely.
South Carolina is not going to waste its time bringing someone like him in and not playing him, right? He will get his chances to shine. I would bet if he doesn't start tomorrow, he will start one of the next two games. So just bookmark it right now, and I think that will definitely be the case. But, I think – and that's another thing with this team. They have so many pieces off the bench that you can go ahead and plop in there, and they're going to do well. So the depth on this bench is going to be crazy, I think, this year.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I agree. I'm glad you brought up Bakes. We talked about Blake Jackson, right? Like another guy that, you didn't necessarily think was going to make an impact. And then all of a sudden he gets here and is playing the lights out, right? So Bakes is another one. They're really, really, really high on Ryan Bakes, excuse me. But yes, Big Red Ass, are we looking to be the small ball team that South Carolina is famous for, or are we going to swing for the fences every time? Jack?
So, that's a good question.
It is a good question.
I think every year they probably go in with the approach of, oh, yeah, we're going to be a small ball team, this and that. And then they end up hitting like a crazy amount of homers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's going to be a good mixture because you got transfer guys in there that can do the little things right. I think South Carolina is going to be prone to swipe some more bags this year and try to just score some runs with a little bit of small ball. Because you have to remember, you have someone like Will Tippett in there, right? At the bottom of the order. He's probably been starting at shortstop. He's not a huge power guy. Every now and then he can be. But for the most part, he's someone that can get on base via the bunt or something like that.
Steal.
So that's a good question. I don't know. I don't think swinging for the fences is a good approach. I think just try hitting the ball wherever you can. Spray the ball to the outfield and see where it goes. But we'll see. I think it'll be a mixture.
Yeah, I think Monty Lee has done a really good job of having this team, kind of focus on, obviously you want to put it in play, but if it's there, hit it out of the damn ballpark, right? Like just go eat. If they give you something, take it, right? So shout out to Monty Lee because he has, we saw it last year, the impact that he made with these hitters. And we know Kingston is more of a defensive coach, which is why the pitching staff has been so great. But yeah, what Monty has done with these hitters, right? I think it's translating. I think, you're trying to play the small fundamental baseball, but if they make a mistake, take a yard, swing as hard as you can and make sure it doesn't come back. So, Big Red, I think they're trying to live up to the small ball fundamentals. And like Jack said, there are a lot of guys that can swipe a bag that are going to be in the starting lineup, that are going to be on the bench. But I think if they're given a pitch to hit, they're going to take it, and especially guys like Veltri, Casas, the dudes that can hit it out are going to wait for their opportunity, right? They're, see, especially in the non-conference schedule, you would hope to see, a lot of balls fly out this weekend. The weather's supposed to be nice. The cold won't be a factor, so should be a beautiful weekend. Yeah.
You better hope it's warm, because you say that and then it's gonna be like 15 degrees tomorrow. So
yeah, I mean, the weather looks good. Knock on wood. So there we go. But I mean, for opening weekend, it's not bad. The forecast is not bad. But again, I'm no weatherman. I am just intern Joe. But Jack, pretty good run over the offense. I liked what you said about the outfield. I think Brewer gets to start in center. Stone hasn't done enough yet. Obviously, we know about his glove. His glove is really, really good, but again, struggled to hit the baseball in the fall and in the spring. So that's always going to be one thing with Stoner, right? Is can he hit the ball? His glove is, deservedly enough to, start in the field, but if he could just hit a little bit better, you would see him over Brewer. But again, a lot of talent across the board. Jack, you want to get into the preseason awards?
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
All right. So preseason awards, we're doing this so that way you guys can hold us accountable for if we were on way off. But starting off with projected hitter of the year, Jack, who you got?
My hitter of the year. The easy pick would be Ethan Petry, right? 23 homers last year, 75 ribbies, all these accolades. He's got more coming this year. But one guy I feel like people are a little sleeping on, I think, is Cole Messina. I think Messina he's going to be your 4-hitter. I think he's the best hitting catcher in college baseball right now, unless there's someone that I've never heard of or something. But anyway, I think Cole Messina is just he's a guy that we talk about, small ball versus long ball and that sort of thing. Cole Messina is going to hit a ton of homers this year. I am predicting, I think he hit maybe like 17 last year, drove in 65. I'm thinking he gets over 20 this year. I think he's definitely going to be up there for all these national awards, especially with like catcher, like the Buster Posey Award and all this sort of stuff. I think he's going to be the perfect cleanup hitter for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I mean, so I agree with that statement. My hitter of the year, my pick for hitter of the year is Gavin Casas, right? I mean, obviously a little banged up entering the season, but when he was on, your team was so much better last season, right? And MLB, the scouts are kind of looking for him to just put it together throughout the whole season. So I think, it's a very, very big deal. When Gavin Casas is on, your team, again, is that much better. Again, the easy pick would be Veltri. But I think, in true, if they're on, the team is better in terms of magnitude with that. I think there's nobody better than Gavin Casas. What he does for your team when, he's putting the ball in play and then also hitting home runs, I think it goes a really, really long way. So that's my hitter of the year. Jack, who you got for pitcher of the year?
A lot of guys that you could pick from, I think. There's going to be a lot of guys that really have to prove themselves this year. I think, again, the easy pick is probably going to be Eli Jones, but I'm not going easy. I'm going to go realistic and a little, more on the dark side of things. I think Dylan Eskew is going to take a big jump this year, right? We talked about it before now. Reliever last year, bad ERA, all this sort of stuff. Didn't really get his chance pitching in a few games. I think this year, look, if Mark Kingston's saying that he has taken the biggest jump for pitching and making the most strides, I believe it. I've seen him pitch really well. I think he is also a great defender, covering his position really well, fielding it very well, and he can throw very well. So I think he's going to really shine through the non-conference, and I think it will carry over into SEC play.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like that pick. Guy with a very, very high ceiling, Dylan Eskew. Again, his work is left in front of him. This is his time to go show the world what he's made of, and South Carolina fans what he's made of. So I like that pick. I went in a different direction. I didn't pick a starter. I have the junkyard dog himself, Mr. Chris Veach out of Chapin. I mean, he's been all that and more for you out of the bullpen. Kingston, when asked, I believe you asked him who the closer would be. about a week ago, and he said Veach, without hesitation. Veach is going to be their guy out of the bullpen. He's getting some honors, some potential or some preseason honors of stopper of the year. He was the most consistent pitcher out of the bullpen last season. Yes, he had some ups and downs, but again, he's the guy that you want in. The junkyard dog, man. You need a guy like that to come close down games. So Veach is my pick for pitcher of the year. Not to ding any of the starters, because it's not that I think Eli Jones isn't capable, but I think this team, with the way that the pitching staff is a little bit banged up, kind of limping out of the gates, you're going to need Veach to come down and or come in and close some close games, right? So I think Veach is going to be very, very, pivotal to this team. And I think Veach is ready, right? He's got the right headspace. He's going into the season preparing, like for anything, just to come in and shut everyone down. The junkyard dog mentality.
Dog.
Exactly. Quite literally. So I can't remember who I heard that nickname from, but it's true. I believe that's what they called him at Chapin. So it's very fitting. Veach is that guy out of the bullpen. So you need somebody like that. Again, a little bit of a head case to kind of close it down. And you need that mentality, right, when you step between the lines. And so I guess the only question with Veach is what will his entrance song be, right? So really, really good stuff.
He had 2 last year, right?
He did. I can't remember what they were.
One of them was Unwritten, I think.
Yeah. Pretty good.
The other,
that's craziness to walk into Unwritten for.
He's not. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so all right, Jack, our last one. I propose the unsung hero, right? The guy that, isn't necessarily going to be the focus of all the attention, might fly under the radar for a little bit, but again, very deserving of some shine. Who you got?
So I think it's depending on if he wins this battle or not. I'm going Tyler Causey. Shout out Fort Mill. You know what it is. Tyler Causey, he's a transfer from North Carolina, spent a few years there. He's been super impressive in these scrimmages, right? He's competing for first base with Gavin, and I think it's not just first base that he could play. I've also heard he could be playing second, third, whatever the case might be, but I do think eventually he does slot in at first base. And he's a guy, left-handed batter. He's like 6'6", really tall, lanky kind of dude. He can hit the ball as Tommy Moody might say, a country mile. And I think Causey is going to hit a lot of balls deep this year. And he's going to play some, hopefully good defense. I mean, we'll see. I think Casas might be a better defender. But I think, for playing first base, you're looking more at the offense, and I think Tyler definitely brings a lot of thunder to the table.
Yeah, and Jack, for clarification, Gavin Casas is in your lineup, one way or another, right? If Causey's going at first, you're throwing Casas at DH. I think, Casas will be in there one way or another. But, yeah, I like your unsung hero pick. Mine, it's not necessarily an unsung hero. The Moose gets plenty of attention himself. But in terms of the unsung hero, I could see, Cole Messina being kind of that Braylon Wimmer role last year, right? Kind of the captain, if you will, the guy that does all the stuff. And then it's like, all right, we kind of expected that. I think the Moose is all that and more, right? It takes a lot, especially with such a young pitching staff, such an inexperienced pitching staff. The Moose is going to have to come in very big for you this year. So I think obviously his catching is pretty good. You mentioned he's in the running for some awards, Buster Posey Award being one of them. But I think whatever Moose can do, and whatever extra he can do, it's going to be special, right? And again, like I mentioned, it's going to be I could see him being in that Braylon Wimmer role. It's like, oh, same old Moose, right? But what and then we look at the numbers and be like, whoa, wait, he's actually doing a lot better than everyone's been giving him credit for. Again, so I got Moose as the unsung hero. I'm sure there will be plenty of praises sung for the Moose. But, and when you're the catcher, and I feel like there's a lot more benefit you add to the team than you do get credit for sometimes. And again, with such a young pitching staff, that's what you got. Jack, anything before we hit the ads real quick?
It's going to be a fun year, man. It's going to be a fun year. I think they got a lot of talent all around. And look, I think the difference between going to Supers and the College World Series and, just barely getting in is going to be dependent on the guys that, all the question marks, right? We know the offense is going to be good this year. Hopefully everyone in the lineup hits the way that we think they can. But it really comes down to the pitching. If they have a pitching staff that is similar to the talent they had, like in terms of the numbers that this pitching staff had last year, I mean, the sky's kind of the limit then, right? Because I think you had so many injuries last year that kind of derailed what was going to be such a big special year. But if you could stay healthy and have your pitching really produce and your offense is clicking, who knows what can happen, man? It's baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. Will be quite interesting. Jack, it is baseball season. You know what that means. It is also tax season. Taxiety is an uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through it alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time. If you're in a hurry for your refund, call in the tax team at Liberty Tax. They are fast, accurate, and guaranteed. On the other hand, if you think you might be owing Uncle Sam, talk to the Liberty Tax team to make sure you're not paying more than you should owe. They'll find every possible deduction for you. Locally owned and operated, staffed by tax professionals from your neighborhood. Open 9 to 9 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays. Multiple service options. Start through Liberty Tax mobile app or through the desktop portal. Make an appointment or just walk in. Give a call to upload your tax documents. And when you come in, your return will be ready to review and sign. Give them a call on your screen right now. And for those listening, 803-462-5576. Once again, 803-462-5576 for all of your tax needs. And this show is also brought to you by our good friend, Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage Network. He's above us on all of our Gamecock Central live programming. In need of help with your mortgage, give our good friend Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage a call. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2003, which allows him to help everyone from the first-time home buyer to the complicated and complex jumbo buyer. Whether you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance, nothing is more important than a well-thought-out financial strategy that comes with 5-star customer service. He's even helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth with their mortgages. So give our guy Clint a call. He's above us on all of our Gamecock Central live programming, like I mentioned. His number is on your screen right now. And for those listening, 803-771-6933. Once again, 803-771-6933. Jack, before we get out of here, I did want to talk about Miami of Ohio a little bit. Their head coach coming in, it's his first season with the Red Hawks, coming in from Indiana State, where he took the Sycamores to, I believe, 5 tournament berths. So it's his first season with the Red Hawks. You have kind of a scattered roster. But what are you seeing initially from Miami of Ohio?
I think Kingston said it today. They got a lot of power on their team. I think they hit 79 homers last year. They got a guy, not sure if he's back or not, but a guy that hit 20 homers last year, and a few others that hit in the teens. So we know coming into this series, it's going to really come down to whether or not the pitching staff can kind of keep the ball in the yard. That's the thing with this team, right? We don't know exactly how the pitching staff's going to shake out with how they do and stuff. We'll get a good indication this weekend. But I think the goal is you really got to keep the ball out of the air, keep it on the ground, keep it in the ballpark, and get some guys to strike out. I mean, look, this is a team. Realistically, the goal should be to sweep every single non-conference series. I think this team is more than capable of doing it. They've done it before. I believe they can do it again. Clemson's obviously the one, the one that's going to be tough. But outside of that, the purpose of these series is to get a real indication of where you're at as a team, what you need to work on. And I think this is going to be a series that you're getting a lot of runs from your offense, but it's going to come down to the pitching staff and if they can hold up. But I do think we'll see Miami, Ohio, score some runs via the long ball, and like you said, new head coach and stuff. So this is the first look we'll get at the Red Hawks with their new team and all that.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. You kind of talked about your keys to victory there, I guess. So that's what we can call this. Yeah, I mean, I think, for me, for this pitching staff, I think that you have to eliminate the walks, right? We've seen that in the past where walks just kind of get to you a little bit, and against a team like Miami of Ohio, like Jack just said, you can lose some of those runs and they add up really, really quickly if you're giving away free passes, right? So, one of my keys for the game is the walks, right? Got to limit the walks, no free passes, right? you would rather have a solo home run than a grand slam, obviously. So, don't give them free passes. Another thing for me is defensively. I think, no errors, right? You need to be really sound defensively because it is, again, just like the walks, it's the silly mistakes that add up quickly, especially in the non-conference, especially when you're an SEC team like South Carolina, because as soon as you start making errors and stuff, Miami of Ohio is going to pounce on it, right? They know they have you. It impacts momentum. It impacts the whole game. And it is really, really, really darn hard to get back that momentum after you start throwing the ball away, start throwing it willy-nilly, right? Start giving up walks. It is really, really hard to chase that. So, for opening weekend, you want to be really good, sound defensively. If you make an error, make up for it, right? 1-2 errors is fine. It's opening weekend. But you have to be really sound defensively, right? It's the walks, it's being sound defensively. And then I guess my offensive key, you don't want to live and die by the long ball. You can't this season, right? It might get you through the non-conference schedule, but, you need some all-around good play, right? And, I'm glad Big Red brought the question up. Are they going to, play small ball or are they going to swing for the fences? I think you do need to play into the small ball and just know that, right? Like Monty says, ball or barrel, right? Swing for the fences if he gives it to you. So I think if they're patient, right, as hitters and wait for their opportunity, this team could go a long way, right? But so, playing good fundamental baseball, waiting for your pitch. Don't chase anything, right? It's opening weekend. Everyone's excited to be back. But to play your game, stay within, the type of player that you are. So those are my biggest things. Jack, you got anything else before we give some final thoughts?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got anything before we send it out?
Man, I'm pumped. Baseball season. It's back. It's back.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say. It's back.
Absolutely. Yeah. We appreciate everyone joining us. Obviously, this is the preseason edition of Fowl Balls. We're still getting everything up and running as it is crossover season. But if you see us out at the ballpark this weekend, feel free to say what's up. Absolutely. So should be a pretty good weekend down at Founders. Hope to see a lot of you guys out there. So thank you guys for watching the return of Foul Balls. Should be a really, really good season coming up. So yeah, should be a pretty good one. Thank you guys for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your weekend.